out what created that price movement and come back the next day when price action is cleaner. So let's go through the watch list first. After we look at this news, you can see on Forex Factory today, not a lot of high impact news, just this 10:15 event with the ECB president speaking. Other than that, not a lot of news that's going to impact the market this morning. And there wasn't a lot of news overnight either. What happened was the Nikkei opened down 4%. That was a big market headline that happened overnight. With that happening, we saw some crazy movement on the GBP pair. So let's first look at that, and then we'll go through the entire list. So you can see I have 3 pairs marked off here on the right side, right above my head. You can see these 3 pairs on the GBP side. They all had this crazy pin about 15, 30 minutes into the market. 418 pips right there on this pin on GBP NZD. It maxed out ADR in that one bar. If you look at GJ, not as big, but still almost 1%, 0.9%, 143 pips, and then right back down. And then it continues in trend here. Now, this only happened on Owanda, on my broker. Why it happened on Owanda, I don't know. They are a regulated broker. If you look at some of the unregulated brokers, they don't have this pin, which is interesting, which makes me think that those unregulated brokers maybe aren't tied into the liquidity pools like Owanda really is. Owanda is really connected with a big bank. So if they're getting poor liquidity or whatever it may be, stop grabbing, whatever you want to call it, that liquidity, that lack of liquidity created this pin. I think it is real, the fact that we see it on Owanda. If we only saw it on unregulated brokers, then I would say, okay, maybe this was just the unregulated broker doing whatever it wants to do. But we have to give possibility to the idea that this is the real price action with this crazy pin. And then the biggest one was on GBP AUD. It was 5.72%, 1,057 pips, 1,000 pips in this one pin right there. You can't even barely see it. You see it coming out of this bar right here, and then it shoots up, all the way up to 1.96 basically, from 1.85. It's crazy, almost 1,100 pips. It's wild. I've never seen one bar do that, and then it just continue lower through the rest of the Asian session. So to me, I'm not going to ignore this. I marked these 3 in blue. I'm just not trading them today. Not only do they have these crazy pins, but they've, of course, maxed out their average daily range with that movement. So I'm just not going to put money into it, because if I lost, then I would say, why did I trade something with that crazy news pin? Volatility is clearly crazy that day. Why am I pushing it? So now you know that there's no news on the Forex Factory. Now that you understand the Nikkei was the main headline overnight with that thing coming in down 4% at the open, I think that coming in down 4% is what created the movement here. Now, you're only seeing GBP AUD, GBP NZD, and GBP JPY be the 3 pairs that have these pins. You don't see it on GBP CHF. See? You don't see that crazy pin. Or GBP CAD. Oh, I'm sorry. You do see it on GCAD. Here on GCAD, it was only 100 pips. Still, not 1,000 pips. 100 is still big, but not 1,000. GU, nothing. You see how there's nothing here on GU for that pin on the open? I think part of the reason is because AUD, JPY, and NZD are all open during the session that the Nikkei is trading, when the Nikkei opens. So because we had the Japanese markets opening together, I think that's why you're seeing the pin more on pairs that are impacted by the Asian market, okay? So if we look through the rest of the list, we'll start at the top. CHF JPY was on my list today based on the perfect market sentiment line. It's back at high of day right now, which is very, very close to the Friday's low. So it could come lower here, but this is going to be the tail of the tape for all of the trade setups today. You're in a short-term upshift. See how the 8 crossed above the 21 right here? So you're trading towards the 21, towards the 50, into a rising market sentiment line here. To me, that is a low probability trade. Based on our backtesting, we know that that's a low probability trade, because it's a much better trade if you're trading short when it's already in a downshift, as it is here overnight. That's where probabilities play in your favor, to take shorts after that. Of course, that fit good entry signals. So to me, this is just one of those setups now that it's above the 50 EMA and holding. I wouldn't be interested in shorting this until it got under the 50, and maybe we look to trade the retest. So it's on my list based on perfect market sentiment. It's also oversold today. Don't want to ignore that. But it's not something I'm super interested in right now. CAD JPY, another JPY pair, that also had that pin at the market open, right? Based on that news. So I wasn't really interested in this. Euro AUD is trading inside the Asian range. See the Asia high and the Asia low right there, right? That, oops, right here. If I could draw better, it would help. Asia high right here, Asia low right here, and it's maxed out its average daily range already. So this could definitely just trade sideways. Kind of similar to what we saw on Friday. It maxed out ADR and then it sat there. See, on Friday, it just sat there at that ADR level after it set it earlier in the morning. So nothing on Euro AUD. It didn't even make the watch list because it's maxed out ADR and it's in the Asian range. Two things that I'm not going to look to trade just because it could be better. Euro JPY, very similar to CHF JPY. You have the zone from Friday's low boxed off here. You've already maxed out your average daily range of 95 pips. As you can see from my notes, we're looking for shorts based on the D1, based on the L50 being in the sell zone, market sentiment being in the sell zone. It is oversold, so you don't want to ignore that. And again, you're trading towards the EMAs here. You could only get about 2R, as you see in my notes, to the 50 EMA, which is right here. You don't know if it's going to come to the 50 or if it's going to come to this zone from Friday's low, where it consolidated at a little bit here and a little bit here, right? I would assume that it's probably not going to break through the 21, through the 50, through the zone, and go to low a day. That would surprise me. However, the higher time frames, as you can see in my notes, are short biased, so it could do that. But when you look at probabilities, number one, it's in an upshift. 8 is above the 21 EMA. So if you're looking to short it, that's not as good as it could be. If it was as good as it could be, it would be in a downshift with the 8 under the 21 EMA. So that's the first knock. Second knock is that it's that it's got oversold here on the bottom. So that's the second thing. The third thing is now the market sentiment line, that yellow part of the TDI, is now in the buy zone. So you'd be going short into a market sentiment line in the buy zone, which can still work. I've done that before. I did it last week. You guys remember from the recap on GA. So it can still happen. It can still work for you, but I think it's a lower probability trade. And on a Monday, I'm just not looking to do lower probability trades. I'm looking to be precise. On a Monday, specifically after that big news over the weekend, it's just not smart to be aggressive. So that's why Euro JPY is just going to be something I mark up. And this is going to be something that I focus on with our webinar, our workshop that we're doing for ASFX members this weekend. It's at 12 o'clock Eastern time on Saturday. The link is in the Facebook group, so you can sign up for that if you're an ASFX member. It's for members only. It's like basically a 2-hour webinar to update everybody on the course, both courses, the entries that we teach in the courses. I'm going to be talking about trading short into upshifts like this. And I have examples where it falls all day, for sure. But I also have examples where it doesn't even break the 21 and it bounces and comes higher. So it's, in my opinion, just a lot safer, especially on a Monday when you're trying to be picky. Don't go trading low probability trades. That's it. It's super simple. If it's low probability, stay off. Here's another one. You have Euro CAD with a big pin on the Nikkei news overnight, right? Again, Euro CAD here. Maybe CAD being impacted by that in some way. I'm not sure. However, this has been rising since our call last week. I know Peter and you guys made money on that. Remember, we had the divergence here. We had a higher low here. Broke the 50 overnight. Here, again, you had long opportunities on Friday here that I know some of you guys were trading, and that thing ripped to ADR and ended up actually finishing the day at that same price level right there. Coming into the market today, naturally, if this pin wasn't here and if it hadn't maxed out ADR already, we would be long biased. So this morning, I'm looking for shorts. I'll show you. You can see off the 50 EMA in here, because that's where I like to find D1 entries. But what did I put in my notes? The downshift right there, 8 crossed under the 21. It kills my long ideas. And if you look at the 1 minute, it's building divergence. RSI has divergence. If I sync up this white line, see that white line? It's synced up now on the 15 minute, and you can see where that divergence is. It's at a great level we would normally like to trade off of. But look at what my notes say. The 1 minute market sentiment line never gets into the buy zone, and now it's still coming lower. So using that D1 entry with waiting for that market sentiment line to getting into your zone on the 1 minute, it's a safe entry. That's why we call it the safe entry, because if that market sentiment line gets into the buy zone and it then comes back into the sell zone, you know you don't want the trade anymore. So it's safer because you can get out of it quicker. But this just points out the fact here of how important the 15-minute downshift is. So once this shifts down, once that market sentiment on the 1 minute stays in the sell zone, what is that telling you? Short biased. It's falling. You could almost take it short. I feel like my next system that I'm going to develop is if I don't get a long idea, I just short this and follow the 8 down to the next EMA. I see it so often now, just following this 1 minute market sentiment line. Really, that's it. So that was Euro CAD with the longs potentially and then getting killed. Look at Euro GBP, just nasty on the open. Maxing out ADR at the start of the London session. Really, it maxed out ADR here with this big bar. 43 pips is all, and now your EMAs are very tight together. You have a swapping market sentiment line. this is not even close to being worth being on my list. Euro NZD, swapping market sentiment, and still in the Asian range. Now, EMAs overall are in an uptrend. We had that long idea on Friday that I know some of you guys made money on here. So you would definitely keep the long bias today. Seeing the TDI fall into the sell zone, I personally would just not have this on the list because I know I'm long biased overall and I'm still trading in the Asian range. So it's a swapping TDI and it's still in the Asian range. Two things that just say, find something better. You can definitely find something better. So now I'm looking at Euro USD and GBP USD. We've had a lot of divergence building even from last week because you can see how low the RSI went on the FOMC news. I was just drawing it in from Thursday into Friday. You can see the RSI rising and price action falling. That sets up the potential for a D2. Now, I wasn't awake at 3:45, but with the second break of the 50 EMA and us being in an upshift, see how the 8 is above the 21 here? That would tell me this could probably move up to the 200 EMA today. So this is a D2 idea. Divergence sets in the bottom. You get confirmations that that's the bottom, and you use the higher low as your stop loss. And GBP USD looks a lot cleaner, right? But same idea. Divergence sets the bottom, multiple hits to that level using the pin here. That's our bottom. It shifts up here at 2:30, 3 o'clock. 8 gets above the 21, breaks the 50 EMA once, breaks it again here in the upshift, and you just expect that to hold the 8 EMA to the next EMA, which is the 200 EMA. This one moved a lot nicer than Euro USD so far, but I think Euro USD is, again, it's still in an upshift, so I think most likely this still comes up to the 200 EMA. Market sentiment was in the sell zone today to start the day, but it rises into the buy zone, creating that swapping situation. And once we have it swapping, I'm not going to be looking to short it, not only because it's towards the 50, but because market sentiment was in the sell zone and now is in the buy zone. So I think the D2 idea is probably still in play here. I would be surprised if this comes down past this stop loss before going up towards the 200. I would be surprised. And then we talked about GU. GCHF did not make my list because market sentiment was in the sell zone, but EMAs were in an uptrend and it's maxed out ADR. So again, EMAs and market sentiment don't agree, big knock, and it's maxed out ADR. Okay, not trading that. GCAD, maxed out ADR on the pin. Market sentiment is long biased overall, so I wouldn't be surprised if it holds the 50 and tries to come up. But for now, no entries just because I would be trading with such little room to ADR, and with this news pin, I just don't know what it's going to do. I'm much safer to come in tomorrow and see if we can find something better. USD CHF had some divergence on top. It's brought the market sentiment down now into the sell zone. Overall, this is long biased, which is I think why you're seeing it slow down here. Same level it slowed down at on Friday, but what's the deal? Divergence, multiple hits, lower high, and breaks of the 50 EMA. So as long as this is under the 50 EMA, I would not be buying it. I would say this could probably come lower today. And USD JPY in the Asian range, swapping market sentiment, buy zone into sell zone, almost back in the buy zone. It's also hit oversold, and your EMAs are tight together. So you guys get why this is very ugly. This is nowhere near an entry for us right now. So the focus today has been on Euro JPY with this potential short idea, but again, I'm not in it because I think it's going to rise because this upshift is in control here. Market sentiment is back in the buy zone. I think it will rise. EuroCAD has been on the list all week because we've got that long bias. It's built this divergence, but just didn't present a long entry that we would like to take. Plus, you've got ADR maxed out and this massive pin. So ECAD will come back in tomorrow and we'll see if we can find something cleaner. And then we're going to watch the D2 ideas on Euro USD and GBP USD right here. That's the watch list this morning. We can also keep an eye on CHF JPY, but again, I think EJ, CHF JPY together with the JPY correlation are going to move higher as they're bringing their market sentiment lines up. They're in an upshift. They're bringing higher lows and higher highs. I think it's a no-brainer to see them coming higher. So the shorts could work, but probabilities, in my opinion, are still long biased more than short biased here.